Hello, this is your host, Cheryl C. Jones, with a warning. This podcast contains true stories of individual genius that may inspire you to take action in your own life. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Getting Simply the Best Results podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl C. Jones.
And I'm Kathy Holscher, the producer of this podcast. So for the last several months on this podcast, we've focused on individual genius as it pertains to entrepreneurship. Today, though, we're turning the tables, and I will interview Cheryl to seek out her genius and give our audience better insight into the woman behind the voice. So welcome, Cheryl.
Why, thank you to be welcome to my own podcast.
Fun. Well, it occurred to me, people have said, what is Cheryl's background? Where'd she go to school? What is her major, et cetera, et cetera. So I just thought, let's let the woman clear it up.
The mystery will be revealed.
There we go.
So let's see.
So shall we jump right in?
So let's get started.
Okay, because I know a lot about you, but I'm going to let you tell the story in your words, okay?
Which story? Just kidding.
All right. So, no, seriously, tell me a little bit about your background. Where did you go to college? What was your degree? And then how have you sort of become this sort of guru that you have become, where you're so insightful and helpful and team-oriented? Just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, this could be a long story, but I'll do my very best to keep it short. So, we'll start at college. My background is in hospitality. So I went to the University of Houston, the Hilton School of Hospitality, Hilton School of Hotel Restaurant Management, and really had a love for hospitality and spent a number of years in that industry. However, if you will, the team orientation, the intuitive skill set that I use in all aspects of my leadership, whether it was in hospitality or coaching or whatever I've done since, has really, was really, how shall I say, came to light as a much younger person. So when I was 13, 14, maybe even sooner, but that's really the time frame in which I kind of can anchor it with some memory. I was very intuitive, and I was picking up what other people were feeling and what other people were thinking without knowing that was what was going on. And when I discovered the fact that I kind of had this skill set, I started looking to and grow it, to really increase it, because it was really interesting to me. So I read a lot of books on it and so forth. So
how old were you when you sort of began to understand and embrace
intuition? I remember being maybe about 14 or maybe, I might have been a little older than that, maybe 15, because I remember riding the bus to the library and checking out books on ESP, extrasensory perception, and studying it. And then I remember playing games with how you get those little photos? Remember when we were kids and we exchanged the photos, the little inch by inch and a half photos?
Yeah, from your class pictures.
Your class pictures.
Yeah.
Well, I had my wallet full of those, right? Okay. So I would pull those out and
because you got 5,000 of them.
Maybe not that many, but close. Yeah, there weren't that many people in my elementary school or middle school, right? So, but I would play games with them and close my eyes and shuffle them and try to identify which one they were. And I was more than 50% right. I was more in the 70 to 80 range of them being, the picture being upside down and my eyes closed and being able to identify who it was on the other side. And so later on, that intuitiveness that I was having I would call them an issue. No, I would have events. Wouldn't call them an issue. At the time, it felt like an issue because it was scary, where I would see things happening before they happened. So I would have precognition, and I felt responsible for that. So if I saw somebody something happening for someone, or I saw a vision of something bad happening for someone, I felt responsible. And at 18, 19, when this was happening quite frequently, I didn't know what to do with it. I felt like I was supposed to do something with it, and if I didn't and I saw it come to fruition, I felt bad. And so, I've learned now to process that and realize that that's not my responsibility, and not all people are open to hearing that. They might take a different path to avoid such a situation, a negative situation anyway. But the gift that it is in it is that very often when I work with individuals or businesses, I can see the potentiality of positive things for them. And that's when it's really a really cool gift, because I see the vision. I don't always know the exact path to get there, but I'm smart enough now, after all these years of business, I can figure out what the probable path is to get to that destination, if that's where they want to go. So my skill set is both in leadership, in terms of that, but with this intuitive future cast, if you will, perspective on it. And so I spent back to hospitality. I spent a number of years in the hospitality industry working for hotels and restaurants, major chains, Hilton, Intercontinental, Outrigger, Westin, and in the food and beverage division of those hotels, and Open Sea World of Texas, long time ago. And I've always used that skill sets, and then decided that I felt like there was an opportunity for me to serve more people as a consultant, and working with people who were wanting to move forward. And so I went out on my own. And so now I've been in business and as my own entity, my own company, Simply the Best Results, for the last 30 years.
And so Simply the Best Results, how would you characterize your business? Who do you cater to? Who's your audience?
My audience is primarily small businesses and individuals who are ready to take a major leap forward, who are ready to transform limited thinking and really step into their own potentiality. And I know that scares a lot of business owners, and that scares a lot of individuals, because those individuals might work for a company, yet they've had a dream that they want to go do their own thing. And that's scary, to step away from the security of a company, that you might work for, or change what you're doing or how you're doing it. If you are an entrepreneur and you own a business, right? Change the way you're doing things. Yet very often resting on our laurels of security is not the best way to achieve the results that we want to create.
Right.
Yeah.
So with this intuitiveness that you have, where you said that you could see people's potential, but you could also see where they were running into problems, issues, etc. So how do you yourself resolve that within you when you see something bad in ahead of them? Is it a clear vision, or is it just a feeling that that's the wrong path, that's not the way to go?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a clear vision. Like I might be able to see where they're running amok, and they're not choosing the more efficient way to get to their destination.
Okay.
Because they've got something made up in their mind from other information or history, their own history or somebody else's, and that's clouding them moving in a certain direction, or that's clouding their decision making. Mm-hmm. And once you clear the clouds and you clear the muck of false beliefs, false orientation, then you can make up your own mind, and you can see clearly what is the next logical step that's going to take you where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So it's not necessarily like, I just saw you have a car accident. It's more like, I see that you have a potential, and I see that you are heading down a path that doesn't necessarily
support that.
Right.
And yes, I have seen car accidents.
I was hoping that wasn't true for you.
Not so much in recent years. However, there have been a number of times where I've seen the potentiality of that, and it was totally out of my hands. There was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah, that'd be a hard thing to live with.
I've really tried to shelter or filter that part out because of, however, if it's not unusual for me to say to my husband, I think you should take your foot off the accelerator. I feel like there's a cop up ahead. Or please slow down. And part of it's logic and part of it's more than that, right?
Right.
Please slow down. The roads are wet. Please don't use cruise control or whatever, right? On the wet roads. And maybe that's fear. Maybe that's intuition. Maybe that's logic. I don't always know, but he's learned now. My husband has now learned to listen to me because, the cop has been up ahead more times than not when I've had that moment.
That's funny.
So we haven't had to have an accident or anything to prove that way.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Thank goodness.
So what do you think, what skill or characteristic that you have do you think has helped you get the best results in your life and in your career?
I think probably there's two things. One is curiosity. I am curious. I'm curious. If you remember Curious George, the monkey in the book series and the video series when children were small, I am curious about everything. So my clients have included everything from funeral homes to rug stores to NBA basketball teams. And I keep asking questions until I understand how that operation works, what motivates the people, what's going on. I don't have to be a funeral director to understand the nuances of the business or a salesperson with the San Antonio Spurs to understand their challenges. But in talking with them and being curious, people share information with me and I get greater insight. And I really am curious. It's not I have a set list of questions, not at all. I'm curious about what makes them tick, what motivates them, what keeps them going. And so curiosity is a big one. The second one is intuition, and I'm listening between the lines. So I'm listening between what people are saying and picking up and tuning into their emotions, their subtle energies, the things that they're not even saying that reflect how they're actually feeling. And I have an ability to read that and put it back to them and say, you say this, but I'm picking up something else. And very often they'll go, yeah, you're right. That's really how I'm feeling. This is all a facade or whatever,
Wow.
And that gives people freedom to kind of let the wall down and just be real and not have to be something they're not,
So the curiosity and the intuition, what have you had to do? Well, curiosity, but maybe the intuitive part of it. Mm-hmm. What have you had to do to hone that? What have you done to sort of back that up and make sure you're moving in the right direction with it for good?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's not a negative thing in me, that right. wants something bad for someone else. Never. I think part of what I've done is I've developed a number of skill sets. I've trained my psyche to my what do you want to call it? My ego to get out of the way. And in doing that, I can very often separate fact from fiction. And for another person and also for myself. So one of the things that I've done is I've learned to muscle test. Mm-hmm. And muscle testing is also called applied kinesiology. And I'm able to gain clear answers without ego, mine or someone else's, being involved to get clear answers. So I'm able to bypass the egoic mind and tap into the true self, whether it's for myself or someone else, and get their true answers. And so I can do it surrogately or for myself. And that has helped me get clarity and get past all the garbage and the stuff that society we've been put on us, as well as we've adopted. And so that allows for clarity. So I can get real clear on whether or not something's in alignment with that person's higher self or in alignment with my higher self. You know, I can ask myself and use muscle testing to get yes or no answers to find out, is this in alignment with my highest and best good? Or if I'm testing for you, I test for you, of course, only with your permission, never without your permission, always with your permission. And I can say, is this to Kathy's highest and best good? And I can get an answer for that. I have not practiced testing for whole groups.
Right, that would be tough.
Well, you have a lot of things come, especially if they're not a group that is in sync with one another, like a team, a well-oiled team very often will be in sync with one another. A networking event, too many different egos, and I don't mean that ego in a negative way, but too many different priorities and people trying to be who think they're supposed to be to test for a whole group. Sometimes I have tested for a whole group and said, what is to the group's highest and best good? But it's more general than it is specific to any one person.
And so all of this that you're doing is all within your body, within your physical and mental being that you draw from.
Yes. So in to describe it a little bit, when I do it, I use my fingers. I use 2 fingers straight, and I put them through 2, on the other hand, put them through 2 linking fingers that are just touching. It would be my ring finger and my thumb, and they're just touching to make a circle. And I then pull against that linking spot. And with the other 2, with the right.
So you're looking at your index finger and the one next to it.
Right, middle finger, yeah.
And then ring finger to thumb on the other hand.
Correct.
So you just put those fingers
in the hole of it and just pull against it. So I will ask, first of all, show me a yes, and pull against the connection point, and if it doesn't open, that shows me that's a yes. If my fingers go straight through it like butter, then I know that's a no. And so I know that I am bypassing my logical brain because I'm using the exact same pressure that I would use whether it's a yes or no question, it doesn't matter. And so the way that I connect with other people to test for them is that very often if they're in my presence, I will ask if I may have permission to test for them, and then I'll hold their hands. And we'll hold hands and connect energetically, and I can feel when that happens, and then when that happens, then I can test for them. And at the end, I have to do a minor little ritual to separate our energies so that I'm not then carrying the other person's energy with me. And they're fully in decision making. I'm not overriding anything they can do, but what I'm doing is, I may say, so you think you want to be an astronaut? I don't know, I'm just choosing something, right? And they say, oh, I'm sure I want to be an astronaut. And then I'll muscle test for them, and it'll say, no, I don't want to be an astronaut, but I like the idea of doing something related to space or something, right?
Right.
And then that way, we get more clear answers,
Right.
So it's amazing how I have used this in many different ways to gain answers and help people clear out the muck that is part of who they think they're supposed to be.
Or the what should I do?
Or the shoulds, or the shoulds that other people have put on them. Right?
I should have done that.
Right. I should have started this career sooner. Right. I should have I should have finished school or whatever. And that's really garbage. That's really garbage that doesn't support you and you or the individual moving forward.
Yeah. Well, so since you have begun your career, since you graduated from college and you worked in the hospitality industry for a while, and then you sort of went out on your own. So how how have you changed, or what you offer, or your business? How have you changed from those days until what you do now?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's quite a big difference. I had a lot of shoulds on me back then about, I should be this kind of trainer or person. And it's so funny to think about the distance I've come. In the beginning, it was all about, I knew something about customer service, so I was going to teach the world how. In fact, my very first job was for my eye doctor, who said, are you still working at the St. Anthony Hotel? And I said, no, let me tell you about what I'm doing now. And he says, could you teach my staff customer service? I said, absolutely. Patients are just like customers.
Right. How did that work out?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Not so much. No, actually, no, it worked out fine, but it tended to be, a very different industry. Mm-hmm. And of course, now I understand the medical industry and that model, and the retail industry and that model, and so forth. And basic principles are the same, but the difference now is that if somebody were to ask me to teach customer service now, I'd say, we got to start some other places first, because it's not about the SMILE program. It's really about, how do people feel about themselves? Do they feel like, they have personal power? Do they feel that they have self-confidence? Do they have a sense of inner peace? And can they find it? I think very much the people that are performing at high levels are people who have emotional, not only IQ, but they also have emotional mastery. So they recognize when they get triggered, and they recognize what they can do to resolve that trigger so it doesn't continue to be a trigger. And that's part of what I teach now. So I don't teach customer service so much anymore at all. And what I'm really teaching is people to be responsible for their own emotions, to be responsible for how they feel, what they want to feel, and getting the limiting and negative thoughts out of the way. So what does that look like today? It looks like workshops, and it looks like on that subject, and it looks like coaching, where I'm helping people regain their personal power and self-confidence and have inner peace in a chaotic world, as well as helping some of them. I'm helping start businesses because they're trying to figure out, okay, I'm scared, I don't know how to do this, but this is my calling. I'm going to move forward on that calling, and yeah, that
so
works
you
out
sort
well.
of help with their mindset, keeping them focused.
Big time mindset,
right?
Yes.
Right.
So it's not about overpowering the mind. I think a lot of people think when it comes to mindset, they think about, I have to control the mind and what it thinks and how it feels. No, it's about recognizing what gets in the way of you having a positive mindset. Recognizing that's all bogus, most likely, and then clearing it out of the way so it doesn't have to continue to bother you and get in the way of whatever dream it is that you're pursuing. Right. That's the power in a mindset.
So if a XYZ organization called you and said, Cheryl, our team is full of talent, but we cannot make our goals. Okay, so kind of walk us through a little bit how you would sort of start working with them. What would be sort of some of the things that you would have them engage in, and kind of give us an idea.
So I typically would do some kind of research work, and that would be that I would go in and find out, talk to many of the employees, some of the formal leaders as well as the informal leaders.
Sort of like one-on-ones?
Yes. So it'd be interview type situation. What do they think is going on? Where do they think the challenges are? Because very often what management thinks and what the actual team thinks are two different things. And then that would inform me in a number of different ways as to what needs to follow. Sometimes it's one or two people that are kind of stirring the pot and causing the whole group not to function well. Then we might address it one way if that was the case.
Some individual coaching.
Correct, some individual coaching, something like that. But I think the whole team we would probably look at some personality profiles, how we're all different, and very often people confuse a personality profile difference as somebody who's trying to start trouble or create a problem, when in reality they don't recognize that that's a different personality and has different needs. And so they get their feelings hurt or whatever. And once we start clearing the air around that, people can work better together. I think we would probably also look at, I mean, granted, this is a fictitious organization, right, or team, and we'd probably look at some of the other challenges. Have there been some changes in their environment? How are those handled? How is the leader integrating and dealing, integrating new information as well as dealing with pushback or problems and things like that? So there might be some coaching for the leaders. Probably there might ideally be some training on personal power. How do you speak your truth and not offend others in a way so that others can hear you and not just, put up the guardrail and not hear you at all, close your ears to everything. So, I love doing retreats where we take people off site and, but groundwork has to be done first. And when you do that, then that makes that retreat, 10 times more powerful than anything.
Right.
And than anything else. So, and then usually some follow up, 4 months or some kind of intervals, depending on every 4 months or every 3 months or whatever, to keep people focused and remembering some of the things that they've learned and practicing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, among your many talents, you are also a keynote speaker.
This is true.
And a book author.
This is true, too.
Okay. So, you have written 2 books that I'm aware of.
Just those two.
Just those two. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what they are, what they're about, and how we can get them.
Absolutely.
And I know the title. It's called Self-Mastery.
No, that's not it.
No, I'm just kidding. Emotional Self-Mastery.
The best book on regaining personal power, self-confidence, and peace.
Sounds perfect.
Thank you. Well, so this book is about, it's the science, if you will, as well as the techniques to regaining your personal power and personal power, self-confidence, and peace. And so the front half of the book is really about the science behind it, neural pathways and how things get stuck in our system and how we can change that we don't have to be a product of our past experiences. We don't have to carry those around. We can move through them, and it doesn't mean you forget them. It just means that they no longer have an emotional charge to them. And believe me, that is humongous. That is just gigantic.
That's a new word.
Whatever that word is I just made up.
Gigantic.
It's gigantic. Yeah. Anyway, and the thing is so often we'll get triggered by something someone says or an event that looks similar to some other experience we've had. And that causes that emotion in us to come back up again, and we relive it. Or we have a memory of it and we see it over and over and over in our heads, and we're trying to avoid that memory. But the thing is we're playing it over and over and over. Well, that only activates the emotion again and again and again. And we have to relive it over and over. But what if you could take the emotion out of that? You could take the charge out of it, and it no longer created that surge of energy in your body that made you go into fight or flight. I mean, what would that be like when it was just neutral? It was like, oh, just neutral. Well, it would have no effect on you. You wouldn't have to keep reliving it. You wouldn't keep having that experience over and over again, and your adrenals putting out all that adrenaline to respond to something that wasn't happening. It was only remembering what did once happen. So this book is about understanding what happens in our bodies, and there are 12 techniques in it for you to eliminate worry, to destroy fear, to get past hurts, to just neutralize the traumas and the things that trigger you into a negative and feeling negatively. And there's no reason that you should, because it's that stuff that holds us back, that keeps us from feeling joy and love and peace and just appreciation every day.
So there's a different way to live. You don't have to live angry or sad.
You don't.
I guess. It's a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice as long as you know you have one.
Right.
Right? If you don't know that there's a solution to those feelings, then it's not a choice.
And
right?
I gotta say, I have read the book. I'm acting like I didn't, but I did. And really, that was probably one of the biggest lessons coming out of it. Was it really is your choice, and you can feel good and live happily, or you can live in the mire and the negativity and the negative self-talk and all of that. So I love the book. I highly recommend it. But there is a second book too.
The second book is a companion journal. It's a 90-day companion journal that goes with the book. And the nice part about it is it helps you gain self-awareness and clarity. And you don't have to work from the beginning to the end with 90 days or anything like that. You can literally just flip to a page, choose a page, and write and respond to the prompt that's on that page. Some of them have connections to activities in the book or to solutions or techniques in the book. And I encourage people to write about it first and then go to turn to the page in the book that's referenced and use the technique on it, because it's really powerful. All the feedback that I've had from people who've actually used the 90-day journal is, oh my gosh, I had no idea that writing about something like that happened, whatever the prompt was, could have that kind of effect. So it's such a simple little thing, but it's really powerful.
Powerful. That is interesting. So that you can find both the book and the 90-day companion journal on Amazon. And you can download the first chapter for free on your website. I've seen that.
Right.
www.simplythebestresults.com. And then you'll click on the menu header book.
I believe you're right.
And if you go in there, there's you can click a link to download the first chapter and kind of get a feel for the rest of the book. So, Cheryl, what is next for you?
Well, we have some very exciting things coming up. So we have started a workshop called Master Your Emotions, Master Your Life. And it's one that we'll be running periodically throughout the year. It's a 3-part workshop, usually happens in the evening, and is only 75 minutes, so an hour and 15 minutes. It's not long at all, 3 weeks in a row. And we focus the first week on regaining your personal power, and the second week is about self-confidence, and the third week is about inner peace. So we have that's coming up. You'll have to check the website to see the upcoming dates. And it's really affordable to attend. So I encourage you to look and consider that, because it's quite powerful. The feedback that we've gotten has been amazing. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we're working on building online training programs that will help people develop their self-awareness and their, ability to neutralize things that are not supportive to them, unsupportive thoughts and beliefs and things like that, and traumas. And that's in the process of being built right now. We'll continue to do a form of podcasting, but it's going to be a little bit different. We want to be able to give you more value than just an array of special guests. So I know that, or I feel that developing yourself personally is the key to your success and your happiness. It has definitely panned out for me, and I see how it has worked in so many ways. And so what we want to be able to do is provide you with not only blog posts they're going to help you develop that personal awareness and self-awareness, as well as how to get ahead kind of thing. And it's not a 6 steps to getting ahead, or 6 steps
success
to success, or
anything.
Exactly. It's not a blueprint, because everyone is different. So if you follow along with us, you'll see lots of different topics coming up on resilience and self-awareness and mindfulness and mindset and those kinds of things. And we'll be offering lots of support and content that will be helpful in reaching goals.
Excellent. There was one question I forgot to ask you, but I really know that our listeners want to know.
What is that?
Who or what has been your biggest influence throughout your career?
Who or what has been my biggest influence? You can tell that I did not prepare answers to these questions in advance because I'm really having to think about that. I really think it's, I don't think it's a who per se. I don't think it's any one person. I think it's more about continuing to be curious. Maybe that's the what, if you will. It's if there was a topic that resonated with me that I felt was interesting, so I would want to know more about it, and I would research it a little bit further.
That probably was an unfair question because I have seen your library, and you're influenced by many great people.
I am.
So you're kind of a compilation of many wonderful, wonderful people. So
it's an extensive library because different people have really contributed in a number of different ways, both business-wise as well as energetically, spiritually, emotionally. I'm trained in several different modalities, but I wouldn't say that they were like the end all, kind of,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? But those people who I really have a high level of respect for, like Gary Craig, where I learned EFT, the emotional freedom technique, and okay, I'm going to forget the other gentleman's name.
Gandhi.
Oh, yeah, Gandhi. Yeah, right. I'm not sure what I could attribute to Gandhi at the moment, except for his peacefulness. But, there's been a lot of influences. Somebody, Scoval Shin, it's going to come to me in a minute. Her first name. She was a nun in the early 19th century, 18th century, something like that. I forgot. And she's, oh my God, she was a spiritual. She was so totally connected spiritually and just got all kinds of insights and she there's 3 volumes, 3 books written by her of just insights that she's had that just are fascinating. Just the way she saw the world during that time period is fascinating. So I don't think it's an individual or necessarily a what, but
a lot of things.
It's a lot of things.
So, looking at at our discussion today, it sounds like that curiosity fuels you and intuition sort of guides you, and those things help you when you work with individuals or businesses or teams to try to reach their full potential. Your curiosity and your intuition really have a lot to do with it, in addition to all the modalities you've learned and the skills and your education. So it's sort of sounds like a very well-rounded experience with you.
I think you summed it up really well. I think you're absolutely right. It is all of those things, and it's not a one thing.
Right.
Right. So it's that listening. It's that intuition, that feeling what that other person's feeling or that team is feeling, kind of deal when there's anxiety or conflict within a team, and knowing that that's not who they are as individuals, and knowing that, and maybe an assumption, but I believe that most people want to be on the high end of emotions. They want to be at that feeling of freedom and joy and love, because that's where the pleasure is,
Life. Absolutely.
So, I think you summed it up very nicely.
So if someone wanted to reach out to Cheryl C. Jones, your website, simplythebestresults.com. You're on LinkedIn as Cheryl C. Jones.
That's correct. I'm on Facebook
as Cheryl C. Jones and Simply the Best Results.
Correct.
And
I am open to an email. Email is Cheryl, CHERYL, at simplythebestresults.com. That's probably better than, I mean, it's a better way to reach me than by phone. I'm open to that as well. But I'd love it if you dropped me an email and said, hey, I like this podcast, or you all were just crazy. What were you thinking?
Well, thank you, Cheryl. It's been a wonderful interview, and we're going to ask our listeners to stay tuned because we are working on this next round of podcast, and very excited about that. So thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, listeners.
And thank you, Kathy, for being our host today, or our co-host, or whatever role you were playing today.
I'm not really sure, but it was fun.
It was fun. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star rating, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. To connect with me, Cheryl C. Jones, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook by my name. Don't forget that Cheryl is spelled with a CH, and be sure to include my middle initial, the letter C. You're welcome to email me at cheryl@simplythebestresults.com or visit my website of www.simplythebestresults.com for more information and inspiration. This has been a GSTBR production, created and hosted by me, Cheryl C. Jones, edited by Brandy Hockaday, and produced by Kathy Holscher. New episodes are available each Thursday on Apple, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google, and many other podcast directories. Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week.